Proactivity, curiosity, coupled with an engaged network is a key to success.
Welcome to the Let Me Save You 25 Years podcast, the only one like it. I'm Shawn David Nelson, founder, CEO of Lovesac. I do this with super cool people because I learned so much myself, but I hope the way we do it is useful to you. If you like it, please share it. Please give us a 5-star rating. That would be super cool on whatever platform you're finding this. Today's topic, I like to go deep on one topic each week. Make good stuff. I've been manufacturing stuff in Asia for, 25 years. And now it's shifting even back to the States. But in those early days, I remember so often, I'll tell you this funny story. We were working with a factory to develop a cover for a Lovesac. And this was going to be a cover that was included with every Lovesac, so that we could sell it, I guess, at its most basic level that way. And then you could add a decorative cover if you wanted something more expensive, whatever. It was just our strategy at the time. And even for that inclusive cover, we wanted a certain quality level. We wanted these handles installed. We wanted these breather grommets so it wouldn't blow up like a balloon. We wanted a certain color that was kind of hard to color match. And the factory, they would deliver this one in red. And we're like, why is it red? And they're like, oh, red's so beautiful. And, they were trying to help us. And they're like, why is it so thin? They're like, oh, we could save you half the price if you use, this composition of fabric versus this other one. And they kept trying to help us save money. They kept trying to help us make it cheaper. And listen, I'm all for being efficient, and I'm all for finding the most efficient ways. And you're balancing cost and retail, all that stuff. But I always had the instinct, even with our basic stuff, to make good stuff. I believe in it. I don't believe in cheap stuff. I mean, it's our whole purpose at Lovesac, inspire humankind to buy better stuff, saying buy less stuff. And it's just something I advocate. And by the way, there are billionaires out there that have become billionaires selling cheap crap. Whether you're writing music, you have a service, not a product. It's a service business, operational business. Or you're making products like me. Make good stuff. That's what today's podcast is about. I'm going to get deep in it with the founder of one of the most innovative, in fact, according to Fast Company, the most innovative company in the last decade, Warby Parker. Neil Blumenthal, co-founder and co-CEO of Warby Parker. We'll talk about how to build trust amongst your customer base. Just because an industry has been around a long time does not mean it can't be vastly improved and disrupted. There's so many opportunities to go out there and disrupt an industry if you're willing to make good stuff. When you make high quality products, your team can become more productive, right? It sounds contradictory, but we're all led to believe the better thing requires more time and resources, but that's not always the case. You can be more efficient chasing better stuff. When you understand your customer deeply, business gets easy. And finally, we get to the root of the question. What defines good stuff at all? You'll find out on this episode right here. Today's guest didn't just disrupt an industry. He drop-kicked it into a new era. He is the co-founder and co-CEO of Warby Parker, the brand that made stylish eyewear accessible, affordable, and let's be honest, glasses cool again. He is a mission-first entrepreneur who proved you can build a billion-dollar business and make the world better at the same time. Last I checked, Warby's at like $3 billion in value, and it's been an amazing ride. Before Warby, he was already out in the world helping people see, literally through his work at Vision Spring. And then he turned a scrappy apartment startup into a category-defining company with a social heartbeat, a B Corp ethos, and a loyal fan base that's basically now like a movement. This man is a builder, a do-gooder, a visionary who leads with purpose, and someone who knows firsthand that great ideas are nothing without great execution. for years and years as it's been now. So everyone get ready. The glasses are on. The vision is clear. Please welcome the unstoppable, the innovative, and the one and only Neil Blumenthal.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, that was quite the intro. I might have to play that every day that I walk back into home to get my kids excited to see me.
You should, man. So you have kids. Tell me about your kids.
They're awesome. 10 and 14, super active. They're skiers like Rachel and me. Gemma actually figure skates as well, just like Rachel did growing up. And actually, they're quite interested in business, and because they overhear Rachel and I talking about our companies all the time. So that's been exciting to be able to have some of these conversations with them now that they're a bit older, versus when they were much younger.
That's so cool, man. Well, I've got four myself. We'll compare notes. But look, when you first heard our topic for today, our Shawnism, as we call it, make good stuff, what's the first thing you thought of?
I mean, a relief, right? The world does not need any more crappy stuff. And I think as entrepreneurs, right, what do we strive to do? We try to build good stuff that people want. Speaking of my kids, if you were to ask them like what my pet peeve is, it's actually the claw in an arcade. Okay. And you kind of wonder like, why and how does that relate to good stuff? Well, first of all, it's kind of like a sucker's game, right? Because most of the time you lose. But the problem is, even when you win, you lose because you get bad stuff. And the last thing that anybody wants in their house is bad stuff. So when I think of good stuff, it's really what helps us, what is useful. I think this idea of usefulness is really important. And the economy is so developed that there are products and services for everything. So if you're creating something new, it better be better or it better be as good but significantly lower price. And I think that's probably how I would define good stuff.
That is really well said. It better be better or as good but significantly lower price. That's amazing. And so obviously, how do you reconcile that to Warby Parker? Because you're the founder of the brand. It's been a disruptive, not just business, certainly not just product, but business movement. So, how do you think about that on those terms?
Yeah, I like to think that we did both. So, for one thing, we started off by selling something that was typically $400 to $500 for $95. So we were selling something as good quality at much lower cost. But then I think we just invested a lot more in the customer experience. So the overall product, the overall stuff, right, is not just the product that you wear every day, but the act of getting it, the act of browsing for frames and shopping and getting excited and building anticipation, getting a eye exam that's seamless, that's using top of the line technology, interacting with salespeople that are super kind but super knowledgeable. I think we've all had that experience, and it was very common within the optical industry of walking into a store where you're sort of ignored, or the product is out of reach or in a locked display, so you can't even try it on. And then, once you do, you're constantly upsold. And that's very common in the optical industry. And that's how you go from seeing something that might be like a couple $100 to then, maybe even like $1,000, and you walk out feeling like you've been ripped off. So, part of good stuff is also the act of the sales process and buying something where you feel good about that purchase and you're excited about it.
I love this. I mean, you're speaking my language. We You make glasses, I make couches. These things have been around a long time. Obviously, we both have a very unique spin, not just on the product. That's kind of easy to look at for people, but on the experience. I think one of the things that is underestimated about Lovesac is our in-store experience is so unique and now often duplicated. So many little couch companies making little mini scale blocks to represent their. I mean, we invented all this and made like a very kind of fun, interactive experience. And I think that a lot of people from the outside don't think of how important that is to, our success. So when I think of your success, and for anyone listening that isn't as familiar with Warby, maybe, and by the way, so, I mean, obviously millions served at least, but there's still, I think, a lot of people who may not have tracked as closely to your business as obviously you have. And I think what's so noteworthy, worth calling out to anyone listening, is what you said about the whole experience. Like, let me put it this way. I reflected on this the other day thinking about you. We haven't gotten the chance to hang out before, but we did kind of come up together a little bit. Even though Lovesac got started a long, long time ago, our current embodiment really got started about the same time. Like, we kind of got this version of Lovesac going around 2014. So pretty close. But lately I was observing, you've obviously come so far. Your business is huge, billions. And if nothing else, and I'm going to say this at the risk of offending you, I don't mean it to, because I want you to react to this. If all you did was unseat and replace lens crafters, what an accomplishment. And here's why I'm saying it that way. I know you're way more than that.
Yeah, we'll take it. We love getting lens crafters customers.
Well, the reason I'm saying it that way is because people my age anyway, all grew up in malls that had like a lens crafter. That's just what you did. And you need or America's Best or whatever. And they're pretty straightforward and pretty sterile and uninteresting. And it's worth calling out because entrepreneurs can be stopped in their tracks thinking, well, this has been done and that's been done. And, it's already there and they already have 800 stores or whatever it is. Like, there's just no unseating that. But you did exactly that. Really not, I won't say with the same product, but with the same products. I mean, eyeglasses versus eyeglasses,
Right.
But it just shows there's so many dimensions to a thing that can be, I'll call it, attacked, that can be rethought, that can be innovated on. And then the whole of the thing becomes more competitive.
Absolutely. I mean, the last thing that the country needs is another run-of-the-mill optical shop. There's about 45,000 optical shops in the U.S.
Wow.
But what we found is that what the country does need is a trusted place to go where you're going to get amazing quality at a fair price and incredible customer service. So, now you walk into an optical shop and maybe you see glasses on shelves at eye level. This is going to sound crazy, but we were one of the first to do that. And it was just because as outsiders, we looked at this category and walking into an optical shop, the glasses were, behind the counter out of reach or in a locked glass display. I think a lot of these sole proprietors were worried that people were going to steal frames. Speaking of which, like, nobody steals prescription frames. And of course, what do people want to do as soon as they see a pair of glasses? They want to grab them and put them on. And then they want to look at themselves in the mirror. So we started experimenting. Okay, well, what if we put glasses on shelves? What if they were at eye level? What if there was only 3 or 4 across so it would be easier to choose? What if you had full-length mirrors instead of small, vanity mirrors? Right? It's just taking a more careful look at the process, and that just you can make anything better. And then you layer on, okay, we're going to cut out the middleman because we're going to design the product ourselves, produce it, and sell directly to customers. Suddenly we could sell, a $500 product at $95. And, that was just because we were cutting out the middleman. So to your point, just because an industry's been around a long time doesn't mean that it can't be, radically improved for the customer.
Yeah. I mean, and you know this, there probably isn't a better example than Warby Parker for this topic. And it's really great for anyone contemplating their path to reflect on, because whether it's tacos or socks, there's just endless opportunity. So I want to come back to something you said, right out of the gate, about usefulness. It's so cool to hear you use that word, because I try and use that word all the time. I don't try, I guess. I find myself using that word all the time myself.
It's also super underused.
Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because I share it. I love that you lead off with the claw, because there's nothing that annoys me more. And this is going to sound like the snobbiest thing, but I'm going to say it anyway. It happened yesterday. There's nothing that annoys me more than getting a bunch of swag. Like, I get swag from companies that send me stuff, they want me, and it's just whatever. It's something with their logo on it. And I don't mean to sound like a snob. The stuff in my life, I'm very thoughtful about stuff. I mean, if you understand Lovesac, right? Our stated purpose is to inspire humankind to buy better stuff, saying buy less stuff. And our couches do that, right? Like, you can have them forever. You can add to them, upgrade them, change the cover. We've designed them not just to last a long time, but to evolve as styles change, whatever, so that you really, if you choose to, you can have it forever. So because that's so core to me, I'm very intentional about the stuff I have in my life. And it's like, if I needed another t-shirt, first of all, it'd be black, because that's the only t-shirt I own. Literally. But secondly, I would choose it, right? Because if I don't, now I have to feel obligated to like wear it or whatever. And it doesn't just a t-shirt, the claw machine stuff, just all the stuff. Right. I think that our generation has just been lulled into this disposable, overconsumption, disgusting rhythm that we didn't even mean to fall into. It's just been like thrust upon us.
Completely. And to your point, if you're going to make swag, it better be good and it better be differentiated, because otherwise it immediately gets given away or thrown out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah. And I have, in fairness, gotten a few swag pieces, call it, that I do utilize, but because they were created in good taste, like the placement of the logo, the size of the logo, the item itself. And that's my point and your point, right? And that's the ethos that we're talking about, is just make good stuff. Like, if you're in a position where you get to make something, whether it's a giveaway t-shirt or your product, you will never go wrong by making good stuff. And I was reflecting on this.
Actually, that reminds me, I've got probably the best example of swag is Bloomberg Philanthropies, one of the biggest, best nonprofits in the country. They do a lot of funding around public health to reduce smoking. They do a lot of funding around reducing mortality, particularly around auto accidents, which is like one of the number one killers across the world. We've partnered with them to help make glasses more available to the billion people that don't have access to it. But their swag is umbrellas, high quality umbrellas. And every time I go to their office, I'm so excited because I know I'm going to get a great umbrella that I'm actually going to use. And like, that's super useful, because everybody has these crappy umbrellas that break and then you're screwed when you're getting soaking wet.
And I'm curious, is the umbrella symbol, is it symbolic to them as well somehow? How do they think about that?
I think it goes back to the founder, Mike Bloomberg, and just being a New Yorker, and you walk around a lot in the rain, and you have those small, crappy, basically disposable black umbrellas that break, that flip upwards, and it's like, there has to be a better way here. I mean, this could have been a business on its own, right? But it's just.
There you go.
doing
I
that
mean, that
usefulness.
took energy and thought, and it came from a real place, not random, not like, oh, we need an item, another coffee mug or another, and that's my point is, and it's so cool coming from there because that's a service business or organization, right? But they're making a product, even if it's just swag. And I think like all of us get the chance to make good stuff, and it doesn't have to just be stuff. We could talk about it, and I mean, you've already touched on it. Your business, I would say, and as an observer, is 50-50. Like, yeah, you're in the real product business, but half of your existence, I would credit to a great experience, service, the intangible. Is that fair?
Yeah, completely.
Maybe more. Maybe it's 70-30. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I
Well,
think that's worth reflecting on.
definitely. As when we started, right, we started purely online. And one of the things that we launched with was a home try-on program where we'd ship people 5 pairs of glasses. They had 5 days to try it on at home. But to your point, that was a service, but it was based on a consumer insight that people wanted to try on glasses and they wanted it to be as easy as possible. Now, we've since sunsetted that home try-on program, but that was because we were able to replace it with something even easier and more convenient for customers. And that is, almost 350 stores. So there's, a store within 50 minutes of somebody's home, or our virtual try-on, which was the first true to scale virtual try-on that enabled you to try on a pair of glasses, get feedback. And then we keep improving on that. So now we launched this feature called Glasses Eraser, where you can literally wear your glasses while you're doing a virtual try-on, and digitally we erase the glasses that you're wearing. And that came from a consumer insight that people need their glasses to see. So, if you're going to shop for something, you got to know how you look in it. But I think, the concept of good stuff is that the good and the threshold for good only gets higher with time.
Yeah.
As people's expectations rise, especially as brands like Lovesac and Warby set those expectations for customers. So you got to constantly be doing better and better just to meet the threshold of good stuff.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, we just launched a recliner that's instantly become a massive part of our business because, and it took us more than 2 or 3 years of engineering, and it sounds dumb because obviously recliner's been around a long time, but in our case, I mean, this thing has, I think, 650 individual parts to it. Customer doesn't know that. It's very seamless. It's very beautiful. You don't have this little scissor arms, that you cut your fingers off on recliners. Whatever. It's a really cool device, but it can work either long ways or deep ways. We're really proud of it. It's very unique, and it's unique to our platform. But it's such a huge investment. It's part of the reason that we don't just have line after line after line of sofas and armchairs, because we've put so much into refining the singular concept of Sactionals, especially. We have some other things, and we have some other things coming, but it's we are competing. It's interesting to reflect on the fact that, look, Lovesac is, I mean, you're now probably the biggest, or you're becoming the biggest purveyor of eyewear. Maybe you are you the biggest at this point?
We're top 10, and we're certainly the biggest eyewear brand to launch in the last,
no doubt,
basically 30 years, maybe even longer. It's like Ray-Ban and Oakley.
Well, and in fairness, I guess Lovesac would be the same for not that people think of couches as brands, but the interesting thing that I'm trying to, I guess, point out is, and I'm not trying to brag, I'm saying this, I'm interested in this. Lovesac has become top 20, probably approaching top 15 biggest furniture retailers in the US. But this furniture retailer sells 2 products. And all the ones above us could sell you a trash can for your bathroom. You know what I mean? And so the scale that's possible when you're just willing to be maniacal about making the best stuff or producing the best service. Because a lot of people listening don't make stuff at all. They're in real estate. They're in, I don't know, media generation, whatever it is. But when you're maniacal, not only can you compete and compete at a high level, as you've proven as Lovesac's proving, I think. But you can keep moving those goalposts back further and further and further. And that was a conversation I got to have on this podcast with Urban Meyer, a famous football coach, good friend. And we got jamming, and he was like a little bit jealous because we were talking about what it felt like, the Super Bowl just happened, right? And he's won his version of that, the college championship. He's one of the winningest coaches of all times. He says, every time I'm standing there, literally, I hate this, Shawn. He said, I'm standing there on the podium, confetti raining down, and I'm already have this pit in my stomach because it was so hard to get there. And the only thing that can top it can't even top it. It's to do it again. And right. Now it's like the clock is ticking. I got to start recruiting tomorrow. My best guys are leaving. And it sucks, man. Like it steals the joy. Where I was reflecting, like, dude, it's what's so cool is I get to 19.
Right.
Now I get to go to 15 or 10 or what, and I just get to keep moving. I get to get bigger. I get to branch into a whole new category. And so I'm curious, like, what is your move the goalpost moment for Warby Parker, or what's coming for Warby Parker? Like, how do you think about that? Because isn't it neat that we get the chance to just kind of keep going?
Completely. So we think we're entering our third act. So if our first act was being sort of one of the pioneers of launching a lifestyle brand online, and our second act was categorized by moving into bricks and mortar and scaling, right, the number of stores that we have to over 300, to getting into adjacent categories like contacts and eye exams. So that way we could be a one-stop shop for customers and patients. Sort of act three is, how do we accelerate with AI? And what we mean by that is, how do we leverage AI in the products that we make, in the customer experience, and in sort of the productivity and the financial profile of the business. So from a product perspective, we're partnering with Google, and we're going to launch AI glasses soon. And that's really powerful because it's almost a whole new category. And glasses, haven't changed that dramatically over the last 800 years. But now imagine glasses that not only help you see the world, but help you understand and navigate it a bit more. Being able to look at a menu and point to an ingredient that you're unfamiliar with, or when you're traveling and there's a sign in a foreign language, or you're actually someone speaking to you in a foreign language and it translates in real time. Or you forgot your keys, and it's, where did I last see my keys? Oh, you saw it at 7 a.m. by the kitchen sink. Right? These are features that are really powerful and transformative. But then we also think about, how does AI improve the customer experience? And that could be, like our virtual try-on that I was mentioning, or our virtual vision test that enables you to do a vision screening online from the comfort of your home if you need to, renew, a glasses or contact prescription, for example. And then, of course, all of our team members are just getting way more productive and are able to sort of do more thanks to these tools. So I'm really excited about that. But there was something that you also mentioned, being sort of rooted in good stuff. You don't always need to do a lot of stuff. I think both of our businesses have started because we were maniacal. We focused on a particular product, master that before going on to the next thing. Mm-hmm. So as an example, when we launched with sort of one type of sort of material frame, acetate frames like what I'm wearing now. And we loved acetate because it's not a petroleum-based polymer like mold injected plastic, but it's leverages cotton and wood pulp, and you can get rich colors and patterns, so it fit the aesthetic that we wanted. And we had single vision lenses, that help you see in the distance or see up close. It wasn't until year 2 that we introduced sunglasses, because that was actually a different product. people buy it differently, even though some of our manufacturers were the same. Buying sunglasses is an impulse purchase. You might buy it right before you're doing an activity or going on vacation. And that's why if you go to a mall, maybe there's one lens crafters, maybe it's on the second floor in the corner of the mall. So you don't even need to walk by it because it's a very intentional trip. Right, you need an eye exam and a new pair of glasses, so I'm going to go to the mall to get glasses. Whereas some of these malls will have 2 or more sunglass huts or sunglasses shops, and you don't make that decision to purchase until you actually walk by, and it dawns on you, oh, I need a pair of glasses. I'll grab those quickly. It wasn't until year 3 that we introduced, mixed material or metal frames, because that was a slightly different manufacturing process, some different factories we would have to work with. It wasn't until year 4 that we introduced progressive lenses, which are for people over the age of 45 that help you see in the distance and up close. So there were these deliberate decisions to focus, build a strong foundation, and that would let us sort of expand and sort of, move the goalposts.
I love that. Well, and what I want to call out for anyone listening, thank you for expounding, is your deep understanding of the customer. You clearly have invested a lot of time and energy and thought, and I'm sure money, because I play the same game, to understand your customer deeply, to really hear what they're saying. And that has to be aggregated across hundreds or thousands of responses and interviews and whatnot. And then synthesizing those understandings into actions for your business. So it's not just like, hey, we sell glasses. Let's put sunglasses on sale. It's not that simple. And in fact, businesses, as we all know, that approach it that way will learn some hard lessons that can be very expensive.
Completely.
So, to you at this point, I'm sure that comes very naturally, but I think that it's worth any listener reflecting on that. How much are you investing? How much do you really know? Or how much are you just kind of following your gut instinct? And I'm curious to hear from you, Neil, about, is there a place for designing for yourself, to follow your own instincts, and hey, if I like it, others will probably like it, versus designing for your customers or against deep insights? How do you reconcile that? Has that ever come up for you?
This might get a little nerdy, but I'm going to reference like the scientific method, right? That we probably haven't thought about since like middle school or high school. And what is the scientific method? You basically form a hypothesis, and then you try to prove or disprove it using, observation and data. And where instinct, I think, helps a ton is to help you formulate a hypothesis. And then, the great executives and founders then, observe the world and try to gather data to either prove or disprove that hypothesis. I think over time, especially as we all get a little bit older, also if you also begin to have some success, you probably are a little more disconnected with the vast majority of consumers. So it's even more important for you to use that instinct just as a hypothesis, again, to prove or disprove. I don't think it was too crazy for us to say, hey, glasses are too expensive, because, we would see that. We would talk to people. You didn't need a survey to tell you that. Mm-hmm. But, we did need a survey and consumer insights to figure out how we should price the actual glasses. So if we wanted to create product that would typically be sold for $400 or $500, what should we price it at? And this is where instinct can sometimes lead you astray. We initially thought that we could price our glasses at $45. And I remember going into a meeting with the head of the marketing department at Wharton, because my co-founders and I were actually starting the business while we were getting our MBAs at Wharton in Philadelphia. And the head of the marketing department, who happened to be a pricing expert, said, you know what, like, I'm sorry, $45 is too cheap. And we're like, what are you talking about? People don't want to spend a lot. And he's like, yeah, but price is the biggest indicator of quality. Also, you know, you're new at this. Whatever you think it's going to cost you to produce your product, it's probably going to be a little more expensive, which means that you'll have margin compression. If you don't have good gross margins, you're not going to be able to operate your business. You won't have money for marketing to acquire customers. And sure enough, we walked out of that meeting and surveyed a couple hundred people, and we mocked up the product page of the website with a pair of glasses on it. And we created like 10 different versions just with different price points on it, and would send out just one version to, you know, subset of folks and another version to another subset. And we asked people, how likely are you to purchase this pair of glasses? And the glasses were all the same, except the price was different. And we found that the willingness to purchase actually increased with price up until about $100, at which point it plateaued and came down. So sure enough, yeah, price is a big indicator of quality, and nobody wanted to buy really cheap glasses because their vision's important to them. Their identity is important to them. So then we were faced with the decision, okay, do we price it at $100? Do we price it just below at $99? And here's where sort of art and instinct came together. And we said, you know what, we're building an aspirational brand here. $99 felt a little discounty. Let's go with $95. And that's how we came with our price point. And I think that was one of our keys to success early on. Now, of course, now we have price points that are much higher than that, several $100s. You know, we make a lot of product in Italy and Japan, for example. We have, you know, pretty high-end, high-technology lenses that are several $100s that people love. But the basic principle is that we're going to deliver incredible value to our customers. So how can we price things for a third or a fourth of the cost of if you were to buy it elsewhere?
It's a masterclass. Like, I'm so grateful to you for going into that level of detail, because often, you know, in podcasts, we only get the surface, and we could go a lot deeper, you and I both, on these topics, but that was really well articulated for anyone listening. And the thing that I reflect on is, number one, anyone out there kind of cooking up their own business, service, you know, new adventure, dissect everything that Neil just, you know, spoke of in the last couple minutes. I mean, there is so much gold in there, in those hills. And find your version of it, because, you know, that's how you build a multi-billion-dollar organization. And I don't care if it's a business or a service. I think it can be related and sort of executed on. And there are so many firms out there and people and experts willing to help you do those things. It's not just, you know, reading books and getting smart. That's what's amazing. You know, this pricing expert that you spoke of, like, those people are out there. They'll work for you formally or you know, on the side. And what also I found myself reflecting on as you were speaking is, this is why I love what I do. This is why I love business. I sometimes, when I'm really, you know, romantic, I speak of building a business like it's my version of, and this is going to sound really cheesy, but it's how I feel. It's my version of getting to extract, you know, the statue of David from a block of marble. Like, I don't know how to do that. Like, if you've ever stood in front of an amazing sculpture, like, I can't fathom how to do that, both technically, physically, whatever. But there are people who, you know, and they stand the test of time. You and I, and anyone listening, we get to sculpt something. And what's amazing about this medium is the breadth of, it's not just being good with a chisel and space. And I don't mean to diminish the statue of David. What I'm trying to say, though, is you got to be thinking about psychology, consumer insights, you know, pricing, sourcing, like that professor said, you're just getting started. You're going to run into these problems. He already knew. And then we can get into management, leadership. Meanwhile, you're raising money. You're dealing with cap tables and term sheets and contracts and interest. And it's like, whoa, like this multifaceted sport to generate this thing that then can drag along a few thousand people with it that get to participate with you and gain employment and health benefits or whatever. And the millions of people then your product touches. And then, you get, who knew? Like even this podcast, occasionally what keeps me going, because I don't make any money doing this, I don't even look for that, is the occasional DM where it's like, you won't believe this, but like, I've been listening to you and like, I've turned my life around, or you really inspired me this. And I know, I don't even know your business, bro, but I know that this happens to Warby Parker, purveyor of glasses in some way. And there's stories that you can't imagine that come from our art. And I don't mean to be all romantic and weird, but like I do view the ability to work across all of these disciplines and generate something that can do all of that as a modern day art form.
Completely. And I think what's even more exciting about it is that it is something that anybody can do, versus your point that like, there aren't that many Michelangelos out there.
I'm living proof of it, bro. I made a beanbag in my parents' basement. Yeah.
Right. It takes a little proactivity and a little curiosity. Proactivity of going out and just putting yourself out there, always taking the first step, and a little bit of curiosity to ask why. That's all it takes, because then you learn. You act on it, you learn something new, you act on it. How do you break down all of these different things into smaller pieces, right? Opening up stores for us was a really big deal, right? Stores are expensive. We didn't know anything about opening up stores, but you start to conduct small experiments. How do we set up a small store in our office? It's low risk. We're already paying rent. You know what? We're going to buy a chair and a table. Okay, that's sort of working. Let's invest in putting some shelves on the wall. It turns out lighting's important. Let's play around with lighting. Let's test different mirrors. We're getting some progress here. We're on track to do a few $1 million of sales. Oh, that gives me the confidence to then sign a lease, because I know that I can do at least this amount of sales on the 6th floor of a non-retail building. I should be able to do even more, or at least that amount. So I can make the math work if I'm paying this in rent, this in sort of labor, this for a build out. Oh, it worked here. Let me try it somewhere else. Do I have a repeatable model? Then I'll start to scale. Not to oversimplify all this stuff, but if you break it into a lot of small steps, it suddenly feels, achievable and tangible.
Perfect. Thank you. And it's very valuable I appreciate you doing that, because, and look, none of us are trying to mansplain anything to anyone. It's just that it can be really overwhelming for people, especially when they see the lens crafters of the world. Like I should have started 40 years ago.
Right.
But you don't need to. You can start today. And there are opportunities if you're willing to stay curious, really curious. I like how you put it, be a little proactive, be a little curious. No, you got to be insanely proactive and insanely curious for decades. And it never ends. And so I appreciate your humility, but what you take for granted is your proclivity to do that. And that's why even my book, I wrote this little book, Let Me Save You 25 Years. Because the love sex story is such a saga. It's wild. If we had more time, I gotta tell you about it sometime. But I'll send you the book. But it starts with very simple Shawnism. Just do something. The only reason Love Sack became a thing is because I made that beanbag. And then eventually my neighbors bugged me. So I made them one. And even then I obsessed about having, double stitching. I was reflecting on this on my drive over, like from the beginning, just naturally, thankfully because all of us have some natural instincts, strengths, I don't know, hang-ups. And I wanted double seams, and I just never wanted them to have a chance at breaking, because all of us experienced as a kid a beanbag breaking and it destroys a house, and these weren't beanbag,
Right.
same idea. And what's crazy is I meet people who bought their love sack from me in college and it's still kicking. And they maybe got it from a friend who gave it to them, and I'm like, and they're apologizing like, oh, I got it on Facebook or whatever. I'm like, I love that.
Yeah.
I like that. Nothing makes me happier than seeing my stuff on flipping Facebook Marketplace or eBay or whatever, because it's not in a landfill.
Right. It is a testament to good stuff.
That's it. And I love what you said right at the podcast. It's not just about making the most expensive stuff. Yeah, I mean, you articulated it perfectly, right? It's got to be better, markedly better, or it's at least got to be as good at a meaningfully better price. And either is great. And you did them both. And I just really take inspiration from that. So look, in the spirit of the podcast, is there anything you could offer someone listening that might save them off a chunk off their own 25-year journey?
I think it's rely on friends and friends of friends and colleagues more. Sometimes I think we feel like we have to do all these things on our own. And sometimes when you're battling with a business, and when I say battling, because it is, building something is hard. Ask people for advice and help. And the more people that know what you're working on, the more that other people can be proactive and say, oh, I know somebody who might know something. Why don't I introduce you? And if I think about how we built Warby Parker, it was a lot of meetings with friends and friends of friends and former coworkers who would generously share, 30 minutes of their time to answer some basic questions about a particular subject, whether that was like retail design and construction, or performance marketing and customer acquisition, or software engineering and how to, build a website and, a ERP. And you'd get just enough information to be dangerous that would then inform the next conversation that you're asking somebody for advice. So, proactivity, curiosity, coupled with an engaged network, right, is a key to success.
So well said. I just made a note myself in my own, reminders. Just ask for more advice more often from anyone. It's one of the most endearing things you can do, and will almost always lead you to new insights. But it takes humility. So I appreciate you calling that out. It's a great one. It's a powerful one. It's an eternal one. All right, look, you can follow Neil as I do on Twitter or Instagram at Neil Blumenthal. That's Neil Blumenthal. Follow him. He's a genius. And Neil, anything we got to have our eyes out, pun intended, looking at Warby Parker for the next little bit?
Well, stay tuned for some AI glasses we're working on, which is really excited.
I am so interested. It makes me wonder. I mean, I'm sure in your vision, we're all wearing glasses in the future. Like, just when everyone's getting surgery or wearing contacts or whatever, I'm guessing you're saying everyone's gonna be wearing glasses.
Completely. We pull you back in.
Hey, they are handsome. All right. Well, thank you so much to the charity-driven chairman, the visionary for Vision Spring, the wise wizard of Warby Parker himself, Mr. Neil Blumenthal.
Thank you so much. Great chatting with you, Shawn.
Heck yeah. And remember, for anyone listening, at the end of the day, real leadership is not about the title on your business card. It's about the trust you build with those around you, your customers, the patience you show, the ideas that stand on their own merit. So just make good stuff. Just might save you a chunk off your own 25-year journey.
Once a year to take my friends away should not be the budget for your bike across America.
TikTok has become an aggregator for some of the dumbest human actions.
When I won that million, I was